Ron Howard is here. His films as a director have grossed more than $1 billion in the United States alone. Last year, his live-action retelling of How the Grinch Stole Christmas was the biggest box office hit of the year, earning more than $400 million. His latest work, A Beautiful Mind, is a dramatic take on the true story of the Nobel Prize winner John Nash. Russell Crowe plays the mathematician who was plagued by schizophrenia, and here is a look at the film.
I need to look through to the governing dynamics. Find a truly original idea. That's the only way I'll ever distinguish myself. It's the only way that I'll ever...
Massive.
I am pleased to welcome Ron Howard back to this table. John Nash, how did you decide? I mean, how did this movie come into being? Because when the book was written, we had the author here, and I thought, not that this was a movie, I just thought, this is one great story.
Yeah, well, you know, it certainly proved to be a great story. Graydon Carter was having lunch one day with my partner Brian Grazer.
Right.
You know, we've been on the show together.
Our guy, yeah.
And Graydon,
Mr. Curiosity.
Mr. Curiosity, and he's also got a nose for a good story. And you know, I think Graydon said, there's a tremendous human interest story that we're about to go with, and would you like to see the article? And I mean, within hours, we were acquiring that story.
On the phone saying to the publisher?
Yeah, he called me, and in fact, we had a couple of other projects in the works that dealt with mental illness as a sort of an aspect in the story. And I said, well, Brian, do we need another one? You know, we're still working out these other ones. We're having a hard time solving those. And he said, we need this one. We need this one. And he told it to me. And it's a powerful and profound story. So it began there. He always, I think, felt that it might be something I'd want to direct, but it wasn't developed, you know, for me exclusively at the company. I was always aware of it. And as Akiva Goldsman, the screenwriter, became involved, working with Brian, working with Karen Kahila at Imagine, it evolved into this extraordinary movie story. And it was daunting, nonetheless, from a directorial standpoint. Great to sort of think about telling this story, but from a directorial perspective, it's very challenging. I felt that it was a bit of a minefield.
Let me guess why. Because part of the drama is what's in his mind.
Absolutely. What's sort of good about it, and also sort of difficult, and ultimately, one of the reasons I wanted to make the movie, because I liked the idea of the challenge once I kind of began to understand it, is that it looks at his life, a very interesting, unusual life, which not only includes sort of genius and extraordinary, moments of epiphany and creation, but also this break between genius and madness and the sort of psychic damage that does. And there's the potential there to take the audience on the journey with John Nash. So instead of sort of observing it as a case study, from a reasonable distance, at its best, I felt it was sort of asking the audience to go on the ride, which is exciting. I've been able to do it a couple of times fairly effectively with, like, going into the fires and backdraft, or taking the audience into the capsule on Apollo 13 with the astronauts. But here's something that's, it's much more internal, the journey, and so it was fascinating to sort out.
And Russell Crowe was your choice?
Yeah, Russell was, a member of a very short list, and Brian and I both agreed, to stop searching. I had a great meeting with Russell, and
he liked it immediately?
He responded to it very, very well. He had a lot of questions about it. I met with him. I was certain that he had the talent to carry it off, but I wasn't 100% convinced. In our meeting, I observed, of course, the charisma and the sort of presence that he has, but I also sensed a very aggressive, intense intellect. Russell's doesn't have a lot of formal education. He'd be the first to admit that, but this is a very, very bright man. And in discussing the book and the script, you know, I saw those wheels turning, and I saw that spark in the eye, and that's something that an actor, you know, can't fake. That's not a matter of like, let's improve the lighting and he'll look smart. Let's get the IQ lens in here. He'll, you know, this is something he has to.
A pen light will make him look great.
It has to be there. It has to be there.
And he had it.
He had it.
And you walked out of that meeting. Did you walk out of that meeting saying he's my guy?
Absolutely. And I didn't have all the answers to his questions, which may have even frustrated him at that time.
And then did you have to sell him on it then, or was he pretty much there?
And he was very interested, but I think he wanted to know how good a listener I might be. He did have some thoughts. He had some concerns, and I think when he saw the next draft, he realized that he and I were very much on the same page, and then he signed
Now, when
on.
did this take place? This conversation?
Well, this was all before I had seen Gladiator.
Ah, that's what I was getting to.
Yeah, this was you know, my enthusiasm for him, Brian's, was really based on meeting him, and also I think, you know, more than anything, probably on the strength of The Insider. The first time I saw The Insider, a movie I loved, I didn't recognize Russell. I didn't know it was Russell Crowe. I watched the whole movie without knowing it was Russell Crowe, and I'd met the man, and I'd seen his other film.
Hello.
And I was and so, you know, I mean, that's how much he transformed himself and how drawn into the movie I was. And I saw it a second time, and knowing that it was Russell, and you know, I thought he was exceptional. It's you know, he brings to work with him every day this curiosity, but also, and here's I think where the two of us really join forces. Every day of filming is an opportunity, okay? Not to be too corny about it, but you have these resources at your disposal. And I think we simply shared one thing, that we wanted to be able to look ourselves in the mirror at the end of the day and felt we'd maximize that opportunity. That and with this story, this character, a more complex character than I'd ever been involved with on either side of the camera, and that certainly Russell felt challenged by. I think it was important for each of us to sort of see that work ethic was there, and that ambition, that creative ambition, was there.
You shot this in sequence, did I hear you say?
About 90% in sequence.
Because the only shot that was not in sequence was one we saw because of bad weather on the roof of the building at Princeton.
Right. And we had to go back and shoot that at the end, which was challenging. And look, this particular movie has a fascinating story, and one of the things about it is, yes, it deals with a life, but it is the journey is suspenseful. It's got twists and turns, but in order to sort of emotionally understand this character and sort of get inside the character, it was important to nail those nuances and build upon them.
No, what we should understand is the story, which everybody understands. The book's already been out, the book's been reviewed, everybody knows his story. His story has been adapted for film, as it has to be, and there have been some issues you put in, I'm sure, for dramatic license and other things that you couldn't include because of time. But essentially the story of John Nash is a very bright young man from West Virginia, who goes to Princeton and with a lot of other bright young people, and he's a mathematician, and he works on developing a great theory. He thinks that's what life is about for him, and otherwise it's a wasted time. And he also develops schizophrenia, and goes on into living with schizophrenia with all kinds of devastating consequences for him. Later, all part of the record, everybody knows, wins the Nobel Prize for what he did before schizophrenia set in. Fair enough?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that on a sort of a humanistic note, that ambitious student who believes at the beginning of the movie that everything depends on his sort of maximizing his gift, and proving to the world and to himself that he is among the elite, you know. That with that, I think the thing that's missing is any sort of peace of mind. And I think he has to go on this horrific journey, meet this remarkable woman, not sort of know quite what, risk everything, almost lose her, in order to come out on the other side with all the things that he wanted, and the addition of, in terms of respect and accomplishment, but also with the peace of mind. that I think he only could have gained having gone through the horrific journey and sort of understanding the real power of human connection, love.
Why is this book called The Beautiful Mind? Or this
It's a
movie?
great title. It's a great title. Well, because it is largely an internal struggle. I mean, the disease kind of becomes the antagonist from within, the evil from within, and it is about this push and pull. You know, the same, and the sort of the irony of this particular man's life is that, you know, the mind that allowed him to achieve at such a high level and to explore his genius and realize it is the same mind that turns on him and threatens to destroy him and make impossible any hope of
a normal
peace,
life that we might have known.
But there's still enough power and strength in that mind to also facilitate ultimately a recovery, and that's what really makes the story, you know, so unique.
I assume in making a movie like this, you've got to believe that an audience is interested in this character. You know, if you make Apollo and you take all the movies you've made, you got to have some riveting character there that's interesting.
Well, much to Universal and DreamWorks' credit, this is not a movie with a hook, you know, and so it's not an easy film to market. I don't think anyone felt that you're going to sort of describe this character and everybody's going to say, that's a film that I've got to see, even after casting somebody as powerful as Russell Crowe.
Now, did you walk into Universal and say, I want to make a movie about a mathematician who went a little crazy?
Well, I think Brian probably did, and given you know, sort of our company's batting average with the studio, they said, well, give it a try. And,
which is 100%, by the way.
Well, it's certainly, you know, it certainly yielded something that they became very responsive to, which was a screenplay by Akiva Goldsman, and much to Stacey Snider's credit, you know, chairwoman of Universal, they really wanted to make this film, but it's not. But the film sort of has to somehow carry its own weight. It has to make its own way in the marketplace. It's not easy to define the picture, and it's really one of the first films that I've made in a long time that really needs word of mouth. It really needs people. It needs supporters in the media, and you know, so far the results have been very good. I'm grateful to say.
Is it the most difficult film you've made, or was Apollo 13 with all that, or what?
I'd say it's on a psychological level in terms of the work with the actors, which is the thing I enjoy the most, and I'm always feel sort of most challenged by, most complicated, without a doubt, most difficult story to sort out and tell and make flow. Other films have been more difficult, sort of logistically. This one, just in terms of pure filmmaking, I think, you know, pure storytelling, the greatest challenge.
Okay, one more casting thing. Jennifer Connelly plays Alicia.
Yes.
Who becomes Ms. Nash.
Jennifer is I think, really wonderful in the film. She had been one of the leads in a small movie that we had produced called Inventing the Abbotts, and her role was, you know, fairly simply written. I thought she and the director, Pat O'Connor, found you know, a great deal of texture and depth, and so that's when I first became aware of Jennifer as someone who I thought had real acting chops. When we began to read about the real Alicia Nash and see pictures of her, as a young woman, she was just dazzlingly beautiful. Well, Jennifer fits into that category. When I met Jennifer, I also found out that she was very academically ambitious, had been to Yale, been to Stanford, understood this academic environment, and in fact, the real Alicia Nash was quite a rarity in her day. An engineering student at MIT in 1950. Very rare for a woman to be at MIT at that time. So she's got the intelligence, she's got the beauty, she has the experience. The next question was the chemistry in the relationship with Russell Crowe, and we did one audition where the two of them did some scenes together, and you know, I just felt that she was going to be extraordinary in this. Alicia Nash becomes, as the rehearsals unfold and the final rewrites take place, an even more important figure in the movie, because when we looked at her story and their story, I felt that not only was she dutiful and dedicated and loving, but some of the choices that she makes in life are risky and remarkable, and as much as I'm not sure how many of us could, would be willing to take that position.
All right, let me see her in action. Here you go. Alicia asking Russell, John Nash, out on a date.
Well, this is their first meeting.
Right.
If you leave your address at my office, I'll pick you up Friday at 8, and we'll eat. One more thing. Do you have a name, or should I just keep calling you Miss?
One last question about all of this. Can you tell me where's John Nash today?
Yeah, he's living in Princeton, going to his office, doing research, working in 3 different areas, still doing some work in game theory, some other work in, I can't really understand when he tells me what he's up to.
But he's doing original creative work in mathematics.
Oh yeah, and I think he may even have a paper due out soon.
That's a good story.
Yeah, he's really pretty amazing.
All right, now let me talk about you. And I've asked this before, but I want to just get one more hit on this.
Okay.
How does this partnership with you and Brian work?
Well, we were on your show. We kind of explained it then, but it's
I want to.
We've basically been partners since 1981, so now that's 20 years. I mean, unofficially for the first 5 years. We made 2 movies, Night Shift and Splash, which were both Brian's ideas. Very, very difficult to get off the ground. Yeah. And out of it, a friendship and a partnership was sort of fused, was sort of built. And we went away, we started making other movies, and then we realized that we continued doing business together and hanging out together and exchanging ideas. And so in '86, Imagine Films was born, and that partnership was formalized. Brian is an extraordinarily gifted producer. He's par excellence. He's he's a go-getter. He's an idea man, and most of all, he is part artist, part businessman, you see, and so he's not, he can talk to actors, he can talk to directors, he can be passionate about ideas. He can be excited about a comedy, but he also can understand the value of a story like A Beautiful Mind. And he also then knows how to make it happen. He's an incredible catalyst. And so our partnership, we both do things differently, and we do different things, and yet we wind up on the same page 9 times out of 10 in terms of what we believe in.
Once you start work, is his work over?
Well, he still has to produce the movie, which means he needs to be a kind of a safety net. Now, I'm fairly self-sufficient. I've done a lot of films. Right. We're also doing a number of films. So his focus, once we begin shooting, will shift to other projects. But he's still seeing dailies. I'm still, even if he's not, even if he's trusting me, sometimes I'll say, Brian, you're trusting me a little too much. What do you think? Because his opinion means a lot to me. He's got good taste. And then the job then becomes, really becomes sort of his responsibility all over again when it reaches the final stages of post-production and then into marketing the film, where he's also, particularly gifted and has great sense.
We've also talked about this before. There was a talk at some point that you guys might take over Universal.
Yeah, I mean, that's been rumored because Brian is such a good candidate to be in one of those kind of jobs, running a larger company than Imagine. No one ever sees me with a jacket and a tie on, sitting in the boardroom. If they do, they're kidding themselves. They should get another image.
It's not in your skill set?
I think it's a job that I hope I don't sound arrogant. I think I could do the job. I don't think I'd be very happy doing the job, and I'd have to learn it. Yeah. I don't know it.
Yeah, you got the skills, but you'd have to learn the specifics.
I have a lifetime of sorting out stories, dealing with scenes, distilling them down to moments, and capturing them on film, working with actors, working with cinematographers, working with editors. This is the thing that I understand, and I've spent my whole life learning it. So it would be a shame to shift gears, and I wouldn't want to.
Now, will Barry Diller make a difference?
Barry Diller is a brilliant guy. He makes a difference wherever he goes. Universal Film Division is riding
a wave of good fortune.
I'm sure, I can't speak for Barry Diller, I'm sure that Barry Diller knows that as well as anyone and is delighted. But Barry Diller is, you know, he succeeds wherever he goes.
So it can only be a good news.
Can only be good news.
Yeah, because you still got Ron Meyer, still got Snyder, and everything's happy.
Yeah, I have to think it's a good thing.
All right. Are you at the stage now where you're looking and picking things because you have a body of work already in comedy, in Grinch, and everything,
Right.
that you're looking to see how you can, in a sense, think about the totality of what your career is about? To try this, you want to try this, you want to choose this and then go over here and maybe explore this up here?
Certainly interested in exploration, and I do think that I think I'm getting stronger as a director. I think I'm learning.
The muscles
more.
are tougher and stronger and better.
Well, we were talking earlier a little bit. I mean, you know, I think you asked about The Beautiful Mind. How do you feel about making a movie that deals with mathematics? Well, had I not made Apollo 13 and learned through that editorial process that, in fact, audiences were fascinated by the technical aspects. They weren't intimidated or turned off. They were intrigued to hear that techno speak and to understand the sort of the human side of that kind of a very scientific undertaking. And I felt the same thing could be applied to Beautiful Mind. So there I learned something that I was able to apply to another movie and be a little bit bolder with and maybe a little bit more ambitious about. The thing that I think I've stopped doing is for years, because I think I was probably typecast as an actor, fairly understandably, I think, looking back at it. I think in the first 10 years or so of my directorial career, I was all about trying to prove myself to be multifaceted and multidimensional. I think in the last few years, Charlie, I've kind of, I feel that based on the kind of projects that are coming to me and the kind of movies that I've been able to make, that I don't really have to prove that anymore. Now my job is to choose carefully and find things that I have sort of the maximum passion for and belief in. And yes, I want to be challenged. I want to make movies that don't look or sound exactly like the other films other people are making in any given year.
Ron Howard, The Beautiful Mind, Russell Crowe, Jennifer Connelly, Ed Harris, and others. The incredible story of John Nash brought to film.